Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the National Association of Women MBAs. We're pleased to present this webinar entitled the LinkedIn Power Hour. It's 6 p.m. We have a few more people who will be joining, but in respect of your time, we're going to go ahead and begin. My name is Nadia Al-Hashmi, and I'll be your moderator for this session. Please note that today's call is being recorded, and all participant lines will be muted during the broadcast. If you need any assistance at any time, please email us at webinars@namba.org. This session will last 45 minutes and include a question and answer period at the end for 15 minutes. However, feel free to pose a question at any time during today's presentation. You may enter a question by simply typing it into the question box on your control panel and then clicking the send button. These instructions will be repeated later in the program. At this point, I'd like to introduce today's speaker, Ross Macpherson. And Ross, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thanks so much, Nadia, and welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us. Today we are going to cover, this is the second in a series, and we're going to be covering LinkedIn this time. Last month, we covered some advanced strategies and secrets of professional resume writer. And today I'm going to do the same thing, but for your LinkedIn profile. So we only have, as Nadia had said, we only have about 45 minutes. This is very often a 2-hour workshop. So I'm really going to be paring it down to the absolute must-knows. And if it's okay with you, I'm just going to go full speed, seatbelt yourself in, and I'm going to walk you through what you really need to do to turn your profile into something spectacular. So a couple little basics around LinkedIn, just to make certain we're all on the same page here. The reality and why this is so important. LinkedIn, hands down, is your highest yield strategy to get your brand online. We could talk hours on how to build an online identity, an online brand. LinkedIn is where I would say you start. So your brand, what makes you spectacular, what makes you amazing, is online, at least, that version of you. LinkedIn is the first and highest yield place where you need to do that. 98% of recruiters out there are using LinkedIn to search for top candidates. That's a pretty compelling number. So if you want to be in the pool that they're looking in, then that's where you've got to be. You've got to be on LinkedIn. Most of you, I would say probably all of you, are on LinkedIn. However, the very good number of you, I would say, have either not necessarily kept it up to date. There's sections that may be blank. There are sections that are probably possibly not optimized the way they could be, because what they've actually discovered is that, not every profile out there is spectacular. The benefit is that this gives you a chance. LinkedIn, your profile gives you a chance to really present sort of a 360-degree look at you, much more than your resume can. Your resume is critical and presents you in a certain way. LinkedIn, if you do it properly, can show other elements of your qualifications and your suitability. And it can also help address that whole idea of fit, that elusive idea of fit, because you can show a little bit more personality on LinkedIn than you can typically in a resume. Ultimately, this is your goal. You want your profile on LinkedIn to market you, showcase your value to an organization, build your brand, and you want it to resonate with your target audience. And this is really important. And I probably mentioned this last month when we were talking about resumes, but you've got to know who your target audience is and what they're after. If you're trying to get into investment finance, you need to know what the world of investment finance and people who would hire you are looking for, and everything in terms of skills, expertise, qualities, attributes, the whole 9 yards. What are they really looking for? And what you have that matches it, that's what you've got to really showcase, and that's how you're going to resonate with them. And as I said, the problem is, although most of you, if not all of you, are on LinkedIn, the reality is, and this is not my opinion, this is coming from recruiters, most LinkedIn profiles they see are awful. Really sort of, as they said, subpar. So what you want to do is you want your profile to be that dynamic one that they stop at, because it will stop them in their tracks. If they see a whole bunch of average profiles and then they come upon yours and it's got everything in the right place and it does something, you're going to get to the top of their list. If they do a search for someone like you, if you've got the right content in there, you're going to come to the top of the list. It just works like a Google search. If you're on page 3 of a Google search, you may as well not exist. Same thing in LinkedIn. If they're doing a search for someone like you, you want to be at the top of that list, and you've got to design it strategically in order to get there. So many of you may be aware of this and probably have noticed this. Just recently, Microsoft purchased LinkedIn, and they've made some rather radical changes. And they've changed the usability in certain areas. They've improved some areas. Other areas they've just taken out. And one of the things they've done is they've sort of adjusted the way your profile looks, the way the whole desktop looks. So a couple of those profile changes just in a short form. You've noticed it's a much more stylized, much more simplified look to your profile. It looks a lot more like the mobile app and is used. Its sort of usability is a little bit more similar to the mobile app. The photo is smaller, and the photo is important. I'm going to be talking about the photo in a second. The photo is smaller, it's round, it looks a little bit different. You want to make certain that your photograph is kind of optimized to this, because before there was an ample sized photo, you could really do a lot with it. Now that it's smaller, there's not as much you can do with it. So I just want to walk you through how to really make that as strong as it can be. This is one of the things that makes me very sad, actually. There was a time, excuse me, there was a time when you could rearrange the sections in your profile to work for you. So say, for example, if you were very early in a career and you were getting your MBA and you knew that your MBA was going to carry more weight than your previous experience was, you could move your education above your experience. You could move anything around in any order you wanted to. They've taken that flexibility away. So we've really got to make certain that the sections that are showcased, you're really taking advantage of, because you can't kind of manipulate the profile and the order of things to work in your favor. There used to be a ton of sections you could put in any order you wanted to. Now they lump a lot of them under what's called accomplishments. And it goes sort of near the end. But again, I'm going to show you some of the things that you can put in there. And there are ways in which you can, again, optimize that. So before you start, and I say this to everybody, if you're going to make any wholesale changes to your LinkedIn profile, first thing I would recommend you do is say no to the option Share Profile Edits. So the idea being, if you make any changes to your profile, your entire network, if you don't have this turned to no, is going to get notified. That might be okay in certain circumstances, but if you are connected to your current boss, or your coworkers, or your vendors, or suppliers, or anyone else that you don't necessarily want to know that you're making wholesale radical changes to it, you want to turn this off. You can always turn it back on again. And it's really simple. You just go into the privacy settings when you go into your account settings, under privacy, and it's right there. Sharing profile edits, you just want to make certain you turn that off and then make your changes. You can always turn it back on again. For example, when you complete your MBA, turn it on, update your MBA, and then everyone will get the announcement that you just completed your MBA. That's a great reason to share an edit. But if you're just making edits right now for the sake of making edits, or you're in a sort of what I call a stealth job search mode, it's best to turn them off. So that's the first step. The first thing I want you to consider, and I mentioned this earlier, and again, forgive me, I'm just diving right in and going full speed. The photo. First off, I would recommend, for anyone on the webinar who does not have a photo, I would really encourage you to do so. I understand the thinking behind not putting a photo up. There's privacy. People are uncomfortable with a public platform. Not everyone is comfortable with the whole social media idea of putting themselves out there. I get that. However, if you are looking to be found by a recruiter or a hiring manager or connect with the right people, the fact of the matter is they've done the studies and found that if those profiles that don't have a photo are 7 times less likely to be contacted, 7 times less likely to be connected with. So here you are trying to put your best foot forward, and people, and you know it as well, many of you know it when you're sort of moving around LinkedIn and checking people out and looking at people and trying to connect with people, and if you see a site and it doesn't have a photo, there's a little part of you inside that's a little disappointed. It's the same thing on the recruiter side, and the same thing on the hiring manager side, and the same thing on the side of those people you want to connect with. So I would urge you to put a photo up. Now the question is, what constitutes a great photo? In a short form, what constitutes a great photo, especially now that the photo is so small, is really, we're talking about a headshot, maybe kind of head and shoulder, maybe, depending, you might get away with upper torso, but it's starting to look far away now. So we really are looking at a decent headshot or head and shoulder shot. We're looking for a smile, ideally a smile with teeth. It actually makes a difference. Well lit. Doesn't have to be taken by a professional photographer, but if you want to spend a couple $100 and get one done, you know it's going to look fantastic. But I'm going to show you samples of some that were not done by professionals, and they were fantastic. So you really do want a great photo up there. And again, now that the photo is smaller, there's things that can go wrong with it. even though you've had a photo up there for years and it's worked brilliantly for you, you might want to go in and check. So I'm going to walk you through some photos. These are real. These are actual clients of mine. The first batch is not so good, not what I would recommend at all. So here's she's actually the director of marketing for an agency. It's a lovely photo. She's a wonderful person, but that's perfect for Facebook. That is not a LinkedIn photo. She's got the little pigtails, the shorts, the summer day, sitting by the fountain. It's a lovely photograph of a great person, but wrong photograph for LinkedIn. This is what I call the serial killer shot, and there are a few of them out there. Just passport quality photographs that really aren't doing anything for your brand. They're really not. You want to smile. There's a smile, but please don't give me any cropped, overexposed photos. And you can see the phantom arm in the background. This is not great. I know you love that photo, and it's from whatever party it was, whenever. This is not the photo to put up on LinkedIn. And here's one. It looks like a great photo because I've got it very large on this screen. But this is an individual standing in front of his company logo or something along those lines, and I see a lot of these. When you get this onto the size on your LinkedIn profile, you can't make him out at all. So this is why I wanted to point out, you may have a photo that you've had up there that has worked brilliantly in the previous incarnation of the profiles where this photo was quite large. In the smaller version, this is almost, you can't recognize this individual at all. So you might want to go and check that. These are some better ones. This is actually an MBA student that took this out in the hall, had a classmate take this midway through a LinkedIn workshop I was doing. So at the break, she went out into the hall, stood by a nice sunny window, had a classmate take that. She's now CFO of the company. She still has that up there, and it's a fantastic shot. This was another MBA student, again, taken sort of in a different sort of a context. I think that was in one of the business buildings on the campus. And he, again, great shot, smiling, doesn't have to be super formal, not even wearing a tie, but that fit his brand perfectly. He actually ended up, we completely rebranded him, and he ended up getting a fantastic job at a marketing agency. This is a more professionally taken shot. I wanted to show this one because, again, smiling, looking directly into the camera, fantastic shot, and outdoors can look amazing. They really are bright, they're light. Any photographer will tell you there's no better lighting than a sunny day, and they know how to use it and really capitalize on it, and she's got the light just hitting it. It's a great shot. Oops. Let me go back for a second. I clicked a little too fast. This last one here, again, this was taken, I think that was at a school that had profiles or photos taken for every MBA student. That's another great photo. Now, just once again, that photo in the original, she was standing off to the side, off to the left. It looked great in the bigger photo. We had to move the photo around a little bit to center it in the circle. So again, now that the photo is a little bit different, you might want to make certain that your photo, the top of your head isn't cut off. I've seen a few of those because LinkedIn just uses sort of an automated thing to reformat your photo. Go in and make certain your photo is good, and if it's not the greatest photo, change it. If it's no longer appropriate, replace it. If you're a little off center or cropped at the top or something like that, you might need to play around with it and move it around. But that photo really is important. Everybody looks at it. They all look at it first. So I can't urge you enough to really make certain your photo is fantastic. Now, underneath your photo is a headline. Now, here's mine. Here's the top of my profile. And you can see there's a couple things I wanted to point out. One, I've got a background in there. And you can put a background. It defaults to sort of a plain, kind of a bluish kind of a background. You can put a background in there. And if you can make it something that's, one, not too distracting, but that might be relevant to your brand. So say, for example, if you are in manufacturing, you may have sort of a manufacturing type of a thing in the background. Or if you are in some other field like finance, it might have something to do with, like a stock exchange or something like that, or something along those lines. What I would encourage you not to do is just pick a pretty photo that you like that has nothing to do, because there's going to be a huge disconnect. This is a professional platform, LinkedIn. It's a professional site, and people are expecting that kind of professional overall look. So if you've got a lovely picture of, trees or something like that, it may work, but you got to watch that if there's that sort of disconnect. It's not about picking your favorite photo. It's about picking the right photo. Then you've got the photo in the middle. Everything is centered now, and the headline, which is what I want to talk about, I just sort of highlighted it there with a little box. This headline is your brand in LinkedIn, and it is absolutely critical. and you have 120 characters in this little section, you really want to make them count. Most people don't use anything close to 120 characters. And what you need to realize is that as you connect and move around through LinkedIn, as you are connecting with people, as you are requesting connections and so forth, people will see, three things travel with you: your photo, which has to be good, your name, and your headline. And you want your headline to say something. A very common one that I see right now in MBA programs is MBA candidate at such and such a school or such and such a university. It's 100% accurate. I get it. But is it doing anything for your brand? No, it's not saying really anything about you. I don't even know what area you specialize in, where your strengths are, and that sort of thing. So think about if this was like a business card that you were handing around and you didn't get a chance to talk to people. This business card was going to entice them. You would have your name, and you would have something under it that was designed to, some little phrase that was designed to entice them. That's what you want here. And I'm a big fan, a big proponent of packing as much as you can in there. If you can come up with an adorable little phrase, some catchy little phrase, they can work. But generally speaking, I find what works better with my clients is something along the lines of what I've got there, where you just have little bursts of qualifications or titles or something along those lines. So let me show you what you could do. And these are 4 completely different examples of it. So it could say something like MBA candidate seeking management consulting role, strategy operations growth, Greater Chicago area. See, now I've learned something. Now that's actually saying something, and it's taking up all 120 characters or very close to it. This is another way of doing it. Focus, international finance, 5 years experience, fluent English, Mandarin, French, MBA candidate, University of San Diego. Again, I've learned something, and you are including the MBA in there. It's your choice if you want to. I think it's a great idea because most of you are obviously using your MBA to leverage a career move of some kind, whether it's a move up or a move across or a move out and a move in a different direction. Then your MBA is probably something you want to showcase. Here's a totally different way of doing it. Second-year MBA candidate seeking investment finance internship in New York City, international experience, or finance and quantitative analysis, 4 years experience, financial models and probability analysis, Pepperdine MBA candidate. You get the idea. And I use these little, I'll either use dashes or little vertical slashes or something along those lines. But that headline has got to say something. So I'd really encourage you, I mean, this is an area that even, it doesn't matter. I have clients who are CEOs, and all it says is the default, and the LinkedIn default is your current title at such and such a company. And it's fine, but when you start wanting to make a bit of a move, it's not saying much. And if you're trying to make a move across or out into a totally different area, it's really not working for you. So that headline is one of the other key things. Again, it travels with you. It's your brand through LinkedIn. You want this to say something. And unfortunately, I'll just give you a little thing. When you are trying to build it, I usually build these and tweak these and modify them just in Microsoft Word, and then I'll highlight the sentence and see how many characters it is to see if it'll fit. Unfortunately, the spaces count as a character, so you are kind of limited that way. But my guess is most of you aren't coming close to the 120 characters, so really see what you can say in there. So we've got the photo now. You've got a fantastic, dynamic, smiling photo. You've got a great headline that actually says something and tells me something about who you are. It's your brand statement. Now we get to this one, the summary. The summary section is one section that, here's what I'd probably guess. A number of you, my guess is, have nothing there because you had no idea what to say. Or you may have copied something from the top of your resume, which is not a great practice. It's a different platform, it reads differently, and this is a different opportunity to sell yourself in a different way, so it ought to be different. Or many of you, if you have something, you've got something about maybe 3 or 4 lines, and that's it. Very few people take advantage of this. There's a reason LinkedIn gives you 2,000 characters, because LinkedIn uses, this section is important to LinkedIn. It's part of their algorithm, part of their SEO. You want to get some keywords in there. So here's my recommendation in terms of building a summary. And I'm going to show you 3 samples and totally different ways of building them. And I know how intimidating starting with, Ross says 2,000 characters. What on earth am I going to say? I'm going to show you how you can build them, and you can probably fill 1,400 to 1,500 characters just like that in no time at all. So you have 2,000 characters. Please customize it. Please don't copy your resume if you really want this to work for you. Here's the other thing. You want to make it a little more personal and conversational. So in other words, you can use the first person. You can say, I did this. I am currently completing my MBA at so-and-so. It's still very professional, but you still want it to sound a little bit more conversational. You can sound distinct. Avoid cliches. Please don't, and I said this in the resume one as well, please don't put something down like I'm a strong team player with outstanding oral and written communication skills. It's such a cliche. They just ignore it. Actually, if communication skills are really important, tell me about your communication skills. Talk about them a little bit more. In what context do they come in handy? Sort of try to avoid the cliches. In your summary, please avoid huge paragraphs. I said this with your resume last month as well. Short little bursts of information, short little chunks of content work better. And when I'm building them, I'm talking something that's like maybe 3-4 lines maximum, ideally, if I can. I really try to keep them brief, and then skip a line. Maybe a couple sentences, skip a line. Really open it up a little bit so it's easy to read. If you put 2 enormous paragraphs in there, I guarantee you no one's going to read them. Pack it with those keywords. And by keywords, I mean, what are the kind of skills, attributes, titles, the kind of, think about, okay, if you're a recruiter looking to find someone like you for the kind of role that you want to be found for, what are the sort of search criteria that you think they're going to look for? Look at job postings, see what they put in there. And if you've got those skills and those attributes, make certain you're referencing them in your summary. Because again, when LinkedIn does a search, this is one of the areas they look. They look in your summary to see if these kind of phrases are in there. So here's what I would recommend. I'm going to give you 2 things, what your summary should include and what your summary could include. The should, which I would recommend to everybody, is a really strong opening sentence. A strong opening sentence, those first 1 or 2 lines. The reason being is, if you look on the profiles, they don't show you the whole summary right off the bat, which means, say, for example, a recruiter looking at this is not going to see your entire summary right off the bat. They're going to see 2 lines if they're looking on a desktop. If they're looking on their mobile device, they're only going to see the first line. So you've got to say something there. You've got to pull them in. You can't eventually get to the point. You've got to start with a strong statement that's going to compel them to click that little button that says learn more. And then they see the entire summary. So pull them in with that opening statement. Something impressive, your focus, something about your qualifications, the type of role you're targeting, where you add value, something that's going to grab them. The sort of samples I'm going to show you do that. That's what I would recommend all of you have, and it doesn't matter whether you're an MBA candidate, an MBA grad, or whether you're 20 years into your career. That opening line has got to say something, got to pull them in some way. Beyond that, you could include, if it's relevant, a brief career background or a highlight or result if it's relevant. If you're staying in the same area or trying to move up in the same path, that might make sense. If you're trying to make a career switch, you don't even need to mention your previous career. Obviously, something about your MBA. Why are you studying your MBA? What are you focusing on? If there are relevant courses, there's all sorts of stuff you could talk about. What it augments or supports or strengthens in terms of your suitability or qualifications. If there's something, if you're holding any positions within your cohort, you can talk about any number of things to impress. This is one I love. These phrases are phrases I put in my LinkedIn profiles for my clients all the time. Where you thrive, and you can actually start a little section that says, I particularly thrive in, and you can talk about the type of environments, the type of companies, the type of situations. I best fit in to organizations that are like this, or in environments that are very creative and dynamic and move at a fast pace, or something like that. I love the phrase, what I'm known for. I am particularly known for an ability to do this, this, and this. When faced with such and such a situation, I'm the go-to person that allows that people come to do this, solve this, and resolve that. Tell me where you're actually adding value. If your whole profile, and I said this with the resume too last month, if everything you're listing is just a list of skills, you're going to look like everyone else with a list of skills. But if you can actually be the one to articulate, here's where I'm really adding value. Here's where I can make your organization better, stronger, faster, more productive, more profitable. Here's what I'm known for. I best fit in here. And that is tremendous, because then you get a company that wants someone like that and has an environment like that, then you look like the perfect solution, as opposed to just a generic candidate that looks like everyone else out there. And that is one of the kisses of death in any job search, is if you look generic. If you look like everybody else like you, it's just easy to get lost. You've got to stand out. So tell me where you thrive. Tell me where you fit in. Tell me what you're known for. What are you particularly strong at? You could include, and these are all coulds. I'm not saying you have to. You could. Any unique work experience or projects that you want to highlight that you don't have highlighted elsewhere. You can also mention things twice. If you have a section in there where you talk about something about your MBA under the education section, you can still reference it again here. Just say it in a different way. if you're making a career change, and I mentioned this last time again with the resumes, you don't have the luxury of saying I've got 5, 10, 15 years experience doing X because you're trying to get into that area. But what you can say is I'm ideally suited to, and then start talking about where you can fit in, what you can do, where you can add value, and so forth. So if you're moving from finance into marketing, for example, you can't talk about your great marketing background because you don't have one yet. But you can say, I'm ideally suited to contribute to, brand definition exercises, this kind of targeted campaigns, blah, 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 and start talking marketing or talking whatever language your target audience wants you to, you want them to hear you talk. So that ideally suited to or able to is a fantastic way of building up some content even though you haven't moved in that direction yet. And it allows you to get some keywords in there. So let's see some examples quickly. So here's one. Again, this is probably the easiest way. Remember I said I'm going to show you a really easy way to build a really substantial summary. This is it. And you'll notice I have headings. And all you need to do headings is put all caps. You can't bold anything in there or change the font. All caps. And there are some bullets that you can include into a LinkedIn profile. But even I've done them without the bullets. But here you'll see that remember that strong opening line that's meant to actually say something? My specialty is international finance. I have 6 years experience with leading investment firm, and I'm currently completing an MBA at the Eli Broad College of Business, Michigan State University. Now you've got my attention. It says something. Next line, I'm looking for a senior analyst or consultant role in a global investment firm. And then we broke it down into 4 or 5 little headings. So just think about what headings could I say? Finance background or finance experience, a couple little brief statements. Remember, not a long paragraph, not reiterating the entire resume, just some brief things to impress. Something, next heading, something about the MBA. The first line says, this is going to further broaden this skill set. I'm in the top 5% of my class, and I'm currently the president of the International Finance Association. And then another thing, my coursework and projects include, and here we get some of those finance keywords in there. You could have a section called qualities if you want to. I'm a leader, a problem solver, an innovative thinker. I'm fiercely competitive. I always recommend at the end of your summary, put how to contact you. Yes, they can contact you through LinkedIn, but if they really want to contact you, tell them right now, like the shortest distance between I'm impressed and I want to contact you, give them your email address. In this case, he even wanted to put his phone number down. Not saying that for everybody, but you can do that. Even what people are saying about me, which are, you can pull quotes from, emails, reference letters, anything like that. Yes, you might have recommendations on LinkedIn, but this allows you to pull things from other areas and put some quotes in. And you could order these in any order you want to. So one of the things I do, if I'm doing a workshop, I'll say to people, for those of you that don't have much of a summary, what are 3 or 4 headings you could put in that would make sense to someone, that would say something about you, that would organize your thinking and organize your presentation of what you have in terms of qualifications. And this is the easiest way to do it. And what you find is, you'll notice I don't have a lot of content under each heading. This is about 1,500 characters. So all of a sudden you've got a substantial summary. So that's one way, probably the easiest way of doing it. It's not right for everybody, but that's the easiest way of doing that. Now here's another one. Oops, there we go. I'm going to go back one. Okay, so this was an individual that was getting his MBA, his part-time MBA. He was a chemist, and he wanted to move into management and business. He wasn't getting much luck. So what we did was completely rebranded him, and what he wanted to do was, the benefit or value he was putting forward was, I've got both. I've got an MBA, which gives me the business side, business knowledge, and I've also got the chemistry side, so I've got the technical. So if you need someone who can stand in the middle and communicate between those two worlds, I'm your person. And that's how he presented his stuff. So this is how we did it. I'm a senior chemistry professional combining 10 years technical experience with an MBA in general management. I'm looking for management roles requiring balance strengths in both of those areas. And then we said, this is kind of like that ideally suited to or able to. He's never done this before, but we said, here's where I can add value. My unique combined skill set allows me to serve as, this was his phrase, serve as the Rosetta Stone between technical and business. Combine, technical and business to align operations to strategic objectives, manage and optimize efficiencies, improve collaboration, serve as a conduit between them. So he was presenting himself as, here's the solution that I'm offering. And then we got a whole bunch of other great keywords in here. One of them is these keywords. I'm ideally suited to contribute to strategic management, operations management, finance and accounting risk management, continuous improvement, and so forth. Getting the skill sets that he knows he can do, at least in here. And this was another fantastic way that we made his profile very SEO compliant, very SEO friendly, so that he could be found. One of the search criteria that recruiters or anybody is using is job titles. If they're looking for a manager of technology, they'll type in manager of technology as one of their search criteria. So we said, even though he's never done these roles before, roles that match my expertise include, because I sent him off, I said, go away, find me the job titles that are sort of suitable to what you do or what you want to do, and we'll include those. So we included a bunch of them. So now these are search criteria, searchable terms that are in his summary, and they can be found. And again, contact me at. Now, it was a him, and I changed his name to Susan. I'll never tell him. Don't tell him. So this is, again, a way of building a profile, or a summary, I should say, that's designed to move a person in a certain direction. This is great for anyone doing a career switch, something along these lines. And I just wanted to show you this last example, only because it shows you how conversational you can get away with. This was a client that I worked with just recently, actually, and she put this together, and I thought it was brilliant. And she started off with, my professional mission is to empower businesses with knowledge and tools to help them gain more customers and keep those customers coming back. One thing about me is that I've never done things conventionally, and has a little blurb about that. Really, what motivates me is to create innovative strategies, then blah, blah, blah. That's what I did at American Supply Chain Association. And that's what I did this. I did the same thing here. As a hobby, I started this as well. And then at the bottom, specialties, and we just sort of separated some keyword areas and skill sets with some asterisks. I'd love to connect with you, so send me an invite or email me here. This shows you how conversational you can be on LinkedIn, and this works. This actually worked like a charm for her. So you really can. You don't have to make it sound sort of dry and dusty like an old resume. You can make this actually quite conversational and quite dynamic if that's, one, suits you, and two, suits your audience. And in this case, it worked perfectly for her. So again, with the summary, what I would recommend you do is think about what are the 4 or 5 things I want to talk about? What are 4 or 5 relevant things I could say? And then just dedicate a little section. You could put a heading at the top of it or not. Or in the case of the chemist who's changing careers, maybe put a section in there that says, here's where I think I'll add value. Here are some job titles that fit my expertise. But again, say something. Tell your story. Tell me why you're the person I need to talk to. That hopefully will give you some ideas on how to build the summary. It hands down, and I've probably delivered 150 to 200 LinkedIn workshops, and I would say hands down the summary is the one that stops people the most. That's the one that most people just don't have nothing there or don't have a clue what to put down. Hopefully, this gives you some ideas in terms of how to build a LinkedIn summary, I should say. The education section. I'm just going to go quickly through these. The education section, what I want to highlight here is, obviously you're going to put down the school, you're going to put that your MBA is there. Please, for those of you, if you're midway through your MBA, don't think that you have to wait until you complete it to put it in your LinkedIn. Put it in there now. And there's 2 sections in there, one called Activities and Societies, and you can list some of the things that you're doing there and societies you belong to and any roles that you play. You'll see at the bottom, President of the 2016 MBA Marketing Committee, that kind of thing. But there's also an area called Description, and there you can go into some detail, and it gives you actually quite a few characters to say something. Why not put in some project work that you've done that's relevant? Or your international trip, if you've done that already. In this case, highlighted a capstone project that was relevant to where this individual was going, a marketing project that was relevant to where this person was going, an international trip that impressed on a completely different level. So again, the idea being, build your education section to actually say something. Feel free to take advantage of the fields they give you to add more relevant content to for where you're trying to go after your MBA. Skills and endorsements. Most people hate this section. This is how it looks now. It used to highlight the top 10 and show you all, that you had, how many endorsements you get for it. Now it shows you the top 3, which is a bit annoying. But this is mine, by the way. Obviously, you want to make certain they give you 50 skills you can put down. Most profiles I see will maybe list about 15, some of them less. Feel free to list as many skills that you have that you could be known for. The other thing is, and especially if you're making a career switch, make certain the top ones are the ones you want to be known for. And if you go into the edit, that little, up in the right corner there where that little pencil is, if you go into edit your skills, one of the things you can do is reorder them. And so you can, it doesn't give you, it used to be called managing your endorsements and managing that sort of thing. They just call, all you can do really now is manage the order. So you could flip the order of things and just make certain, now that they really only highlight the top three, make certain those top three are three you want to be known for. They're relevant. Again, many people don't even think of looking at their skills or what they're endorsed for or which skills are at the top, because people will assume the ones at the top are the ones that you're best at, the ones that you've done the most. And if you're especially trying to make a career switch, you got to see what you can do to reorder these. You can delete them, reorder them, do all sorts of stuff, but take advantage of this section. Because again, LinkedIn's not getting rid of it anytime soon. I know there's frustration in the past. People have been endorsed for skills they didn't know they had by people they've never met. It's not perfect, but it is an important piece in LinkedIn, and it's a huge part of their algorithm. So make certain you're getting the right kind of phrases and right skills in there. The accomplishment section, as I said, the accomplishment section is what houses an awful lot of some of the other miscellaneous sections. I personally, I'm of two minds on this one. I understand the thinking behind it. I wish it weren't buried at the bottom, because I have some clients for whom some of these sections would look brilliant if they were further up. All I can recommend you do is at least complete them. So some of the sections that are now in accomplishments, certifications. So if you've got your PMP, you have the option of putting that under education. I usually separate certifications and education. I actually really do quite take that literally. So certifications, feel free to complete that. Any courses that you've got. So again, it may not necessarily be degree granting. It may not be giving you a certificate or letters after your name or a designation. But if there's a relevant course that you've taken, say you've taken a Caras negotiation course or something along those lines, or a leadership course, an executive development program, include them in here. Make certain they're in there, because they are looked at. Honors and awards, by all means. You can even mention, that could be a section. If you've got a bunch of honors and awards, you could stick a section in your summary that talks about that and include them here as well. Languages, feel free. I usually say, unless you are pretty much fluent in another language, it's not worth saying. I've seen some that sort of put down German, basic knowledge or elemental, basically not even, I can order dinner in Germany. That's about it. If that's the case, it doesn't really belong in there. The other option is, the other sort of criteria you can consider with languages, many of you may have multiple, like 4 and 5, but do you need to mention, there's some languages that you're probably not going to be running into. If it's relevant, by all means add it, but you're not obligated to list every single one. So it's just about I'd rather you really listed strengths as opposed to just listing volume. Patents, if it's relevant. If it's not relevant, obviously you don't need to mention it. Now this one's interesting, projects. The reason this is, I wish this was a separate section, only because so many people, so many clients of mine have amazing projects they've worked on in one context or another that they really want to showcase. This is a section where you could showcase it, but it's buried at the bottom in the accomplishment section. That's all we've got to work with now. So at least complete them. So if you could, for example, if you didn't put it in your education section, or if you don't have room because there's other projects you could include under your MBA, you could include some here. If there's special projects you really want to highlight that you don't have room for in your experience section, then you could include them in here. If you've done consulting on the side that's relevant, you could include them in here and provide a little bit of detail. So this is a section, again, that really you want to take advantage of. Publications, if you've got them, by all means. Test scores, if you're so inclined, you can include them. Organizations, this is where if you volunteer, if you sit on any boards, if you sit on any committees, this is a great section. I do know recruiters look at this section. They do want to know, are you involved in your community? Are you involved in your industry? And if you are, then this is the section, and feel free. You can certainly, say for example, you sit on the finance committee with some organization. Then by all means, you could just simply say finance committee and the name of the organization. But if you're given a chance to actually tell me some of the things you were able to do and contribute to, feel free to go into a little bit more detail there. So, one of the other things I'll sort of mention is, one of the other things you could add in your summary even is, if you contribute to your industry or if you do volunteering on the side, that's another nice thing you can sort of put towards the end of your summary is, when not, doing this, when not, outside of professional life or something like that, I'm an active contributor within the industry, sitting on the finance committee with the ABC organization or something like that. And you can also list it here. So feel free, once again, go through that accomplishment section and see what some of the things are that you can add in there. These are, I really spent most of the time, obviously, talking about getting a great photo in there, getting a great headline in there, really putting in a summary that says something, has the right kind of content and the right kind of words in there, taking advantage of the education section. In your experience section, I'm not going to go into great detail. All I really need to say around that is, just like in your resume, feel free to tell me how good you are. Where did you add value? Get those great accomplishment statements in there. I know some people are of the school of thought that they just want to list, companies and job titles. I like to put a little bit more content in there, and feel free to. There's a reason why LinkedIn gives you so many characters and such a good chunk of space to give me something that you've done under each role. So feel free to take advantage of that. And again, it gets more keywords in there, more relevant content, which again gives you more content to be a good match should someone be doing a search for someone like you. So we're getting down to the end, and this really is sort of the 45-minute speed of sound sort of version of it. But some final thoughts around this. I can't stress this enough. Most people have really honestly built what I call they have what's called an accidental brand online. I often ask, if I'm doing a workshop on building an online identity or an online brand, I'll ask how many people have Googled themselves. And, pretty much everyone puts their hand up. We've all done it because we're curious to see what's up there. You ought to know what's up there. This is your brand. It's your name. It's you online. So, when it comes to anything that's up there online, and especially your LinkedIn, don't have an accidental brand. Don't have an accidental presence on LinkedIn where it's just sort of, I threw some stuff in there and hopefully recruiters will call me. Take a very deliberate and strategic approach to this. Put the right photo up there. Put the right headline up there. Get the right content in your summary. Get the right content in your experience and education. Fill in the right other sections in there. Connect with the right people. You take a deliberate and strategic approach to this, you will reap those rewards. You really honestly will. That's the kind of ROI you're after. You want to be connected to the right people, and you want to be found for the right opportunity. And if you have sort of an accidental profile up there, you're not going to get it. Get a deliberate and strategic one, and all of a sudden, doors start opening and your phone starts ringing off the hook. That's what we want. So know your unique value and your unique expertise. That's a big one. You've got to be articulate in that. Know what your target market wants. And if you can showcase the best elements of you that match what they want, I guarantee you will attract the right people and the right opportunities. And that's what this deliberate and strategic approach is about. So I'll sort of end things there, wish you the absolute best of luck, and how about we open things up to questions now? Either I covered everything, or we need a couple questions in here.
So Ross,
Yeah.
nobody has any questions yet.
Okay. Well,
Um,
do you have a question?
um, One of my questions would be, do you have any other recommendations, specifically in regards to what is too personal?
Oh,
And
okay.
yeah, what are the boundaries? Because you were talking about, making it unique to us. Should we, the background photo, for example, should that be specific to our company, or do you think that we should always sort of keep that open? How specific should it
Yeah,
be?
that's a good question. I mean, you do want to make this a little bit. You can make it, I should say, a little bit more personal, a little bit more conversational, and show that other side to you. But remember, it's still a professional platform. So I very often say, whenever if you're in your summary, for example, if you want to talk a little bit about outside your professional life or make it more conversational, you can. But you very often make the analogy that think about this as you're having a conversation with someone at work. You're having a conversation with a client, and you're talking work, but it's a little bit more conversational. It's still got that professional context. In terms of personal stuff, I really do think you draw the line with LinkedIn. There's, for example, I've said this for years. There's a section on LinkedIn where you can include your birthday and personal information. In my opinion, this is not the place for it. I don't mind if I'm on Facebook and my friends and family that I'm connected to on Facebook, my birthday is up on there because I love getting birthday greetings from my friends and family. I would feel really strange if a broadcast went out to, I've got about 3,000 or 4,000 connections on LinkedIn. If a broadcast went out and I'm getting birthday greetings in this sort of business context, that to me is not, in my opinion, even though LinkedIn gives you that option, I'm not a big fan of it. Obviously, the photo, I keep seeing photos that are, again, the Facebook photo. You really do want to try to keep this as professional as you possibly can. Usually the biggest questions when I sort of open it up to questions, usually the biggest ones are around trying to make a career switch. One of the real challenges, I'll throw this one out there because I'm sure there's a few people on that are thinking this. One of them is, let's say, for example, you could go in one of two different possible directions with your career as a next step. How do you position yourself for two possible directions on one LinkedIn profile? In a perfect world, LinkedIn would give you two profiles to work with. They don't. They give you just one. And by the way, you can't sneak a second one on there. If you're William, and you try to sneak a Bill on there, they'll find you. Don't worry, the LinkedIn police will find you, and they'll shut that one down. So what you can do is, in your headline, if you can position yourself and sort of mention those two areas up there, you can in your headline. The other thing is in your summary. Again, this is where headings come into play. If you were to go, for example, to my site, there's two parts of my business. There's the writing side, where I'm writing people's LinkedIn profiles and resumes, and then there's the speaking side, which is doing exactly what I'm doing right now. They're two very different parts of my business. And so I have a heading there that says, as a resume and LinkedIn writer, and then I talk about that. And then I have another heading that says, as a speaker, and then I talk about that. You can do the same thing. So if it's, it could be, pure marketing, or it could be more broadly, business development as two areas that you could go into, then you could have one heading for one heading for the other. That's really all you can do. Sadly, LinkedIn only gives you, again, the one profile, so you've really just got to capitalize and make the absolute best of the one profile you have. And if you can talk about the two avenues, that's really all you can do.
Okay, Ross, we're getting a couple of questions in now. Maybe we can
Great.
get them in. Someone wants to know, what are your thoughts on using Strength Quest themes or a Myers-Briggs personality type? She added it to
Sorry, was it including, did you say using Myers-Briggs and that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
You can. It does speak to fit a little bit. I'll be honest with you, my personal take, and I'm just giving you my personal take. My personal take is you can save that kind of more for the interview side of things. Unless you are going for, if you're going for a role where it's either, I've actually seen some job description and postings that actually say the perfect fit would be, and they'll give you sort of their MBTI or something like that. You can include that. Not everyone is as into it and as conversant in it that it will really resonate with them. So it's a can add. I think there's probably other things that would add an awful lot more value. So I will leave it as yeah, you can, but it's probably not something I would go out of my way to include.
And another question is, should we ever accept a connection request from people we don't know?
Oh, that's a popular one. Great question. Here's my answer to it, though. That is entirely 100% up to you. And there's two schools of thought in this. And one of them is the whole benefit of connecting through LinkedIn, and this whole 7 degrees of separation, being able to connect with people, is to build a robust network. And if you get a request from someone and you look at their profile and they look fantastic and fascinating and relevant and everything else, then yeah. And I know some people who almost indiscriminately connect with everybody. The whole idea being, that with LinkedIn, you're trying to get a big, robust network. And the larger your network, the more people you can connect with. And that theory makes sense. There's another school of thought, and this is the one I'm in, which is I would rather have some connection to someone. And all I need, and this is my criteria, and again, it's only me, how you choose to build your network really honestly is a personal thing. I know people who will only connect with people they know. I personally think that's a little limiting because if you want your network to go beyond that, you can kind of go beyond it. Here's the only criteria that I typically need is, and I would recommend this to everybody, if you are sending a connection request, go to the extra difficulty, and I know it will take you an extra 10 seconds or an extra minute, but please go to the extra step of including a personalized message that actually says, hey Ross, I was on that NAMBA webinar you did on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect with you. All I need to hear is that, and I will connect with you. And that's my criteria. So I get that kind of all the time. And I would honestly tell you, if you are going to connect with people and you want to, again, build a robust network of the right people, if you simply send out an anonymous request, it's very easy for people like me to go, don't know you, don't really know why I'm so compelled to connect with you. If you put in a personalized message, that changes it entirely, and I almost guarantee you the number of people who connect with you or the percentage of connection yeses will go up. So that's sort of my take on that. It really is a personal call because there's arguments to both sides. I told you sort of where I fit, but I do know people who have amazing networks who are really quite indiscriminate. They just try to go by volume, and there's an argument to that too. So it really is a personal call.
Okay, and you sort of touched on this, but someone said he's over 30 years in the industry. Should he list every job he's ever had?
I would say you probably don't need to. Similar to a resume, the answer is, usually my answer is go back as far as is relevant. So, on a resume, you can go back as far as is relevant. Maybe it's 3 or 4 roles, or go back, like maybe 15 years. And then before that, you could either just list them without going into detail, or you can say previous experience includes something or other. On LinkedIn, you don't get a chance to say that, previous experience includes. So you just don't necessarily need to list absolutely everything if you're that far into a career. It's not that relevant. That said, if there is anything relevant back there, by all means list it. But I would say no, you probably don't need to. They're going to be looking at your last 15 years on average. I've heard recruiters say last 10, but I usually consider the last 15 years of a lengthy career the most relevant. So that's obviously where you want to put most of your attention.
Okay, and this is on career change. She said that she's not quite sure what path she wants to take, but she's open to career options. She's not actively looking. What do you recommend creating as brand creation in this situation?
That one's a little trickier, but obviously what you want to highlight in a case such as that, I'd probably be asking you, what are those strengths that you have that you love demonstrating? Where do you think you're particularly strong? I know people who've said I'm really good at this, but I hate doing it. Well, then let's not push that. So what do you love doing? Where do you think your real strengths lie? And that's probably what you would want to push. So, you don't need to necessarily say in your headline, that you're a marketing professional or a marketing executive or whatever. You could simply say, experienced professional, and then just mention, 3 or 4 skill sets, like your absolute top, or where you really add value. Helping company, you could come up, it's not perfect, but if you said, helping organizations do this and do this, and then if you want to mention, say, for example, if you've got your MBA, you could include that. That could be a quick headline. And then in your summary, just talk about some of the great work that you've done, or some of those key areas where you love to make a difference, or where you're particularly strong. And you're not necessarily pointing yourself to a job title, but you're at least saying, here's what you get when you get me. I'm known for the ability to do this. I love doing this. I'm the type of person who can do this and this. And then you can build a profile that way or a summary that way. So you don't need to. If you can zero in on a job title, great. But if you're still undecided, just simply pick, well, what is it about you would want anyone to know? Think about, across the whole breadth of what you could do, what would you want them to really know about you? Where do you think your real strengths lie? Let's pick the top aspects of who you are and the kind of value you bring to an organization, and let's highlight those. And that's probably how I'd go about it.
So we only have 5 minutes left, but I'm going to try to get through as many of the other questions as we can.
Go for it.
This one's more about sort of personal. How personal do you want to get? What are your thoughts on posting articles, particularly ones that are political or controversial in nature, and how that contributes to building a personal brand?
I think posting articles and getting some thought content up there is a great idea. Obviously, you do want to be cautious in terms of what you're putting up there. I'm a big fan, big proponent of, I mean, if you're in, whatever field you happen to be in and you've got some great ideas or some nifty ways of doing things or some thoughts on what's going on in the market or in the business or the industry right now, by all means, put something up there. I think it's a great idea to build a brand. And people all of a sudden start wanting to connect with you, and the right people who are reading the articles. When it gets into topic, like overly topical, whether it's I usually say politics and religion are just two areas you want to try to avoid. I'll give you the little caveat to that. I have had clients who have said this is a big part of who I am, and if anyone has a problem with it, that's not a good match for me, and that's fine if you want that. But I would usually say, I'd say 90% of my recommendation is stay away from those two topics unless that's the realm you work in. If you are in those worlds, by all means. But being, I would probably caution the idea of being deliberately controversial to make a name for yourself. I've known people who have tried that. It tends in the long run to backfire. So I would say yes to articles, get some great thought content up there, but really watch what you're putting up there. Because I've also known LinkedIn will take things down. If they find that it is just the wrong tone, they will take these things down, and they will give you that sort of, slap on the wrist kind of thing. They're very serious about what they have up there.
Okay, and the next question is, if you're interested in a particular firm, how high up the C-suite can we reach out to get a foot in the door?
Oh, that's a good one. I mean, in terms of just connecting on LinkedIn, go for it. I mean, go right up to the top if you can. There's nothing wrong with that. In terms of really connect, like sending emails and really trying to send comments and so forth, or some sort of message to them, I would usually say you really don't want to go higher than the person. And this is a more cautious approach, but there's reasons for it. You don't really want to go higher than the person who would hire you. It tends to be, and you may be able to go the next level up, maybe. But yeah, I mean, if you're sort of analyst level and you're aggressive and want to just think, I'm gonna go connect with the CEO, sure, give it a shot. But I mean, there's a point at which you sort of, it's diminishing returns, and you got to understand that some of these, like, the top execs at Google, they get inundated with this stuff. It's not going to necessarily work. So I usually say be very strategic with this. Who would hire you? Who is the person who would be in a position to actually hire you, that runs the area that you want to work in? And see if you can find him or her, and see if you can get in that way. Then there's relevance to why you're connecting with this person. You're not just randomly trying to connect with the top people at the company. That's probably my recommendation. Anytime you're trying to get into an organization cold, I usually say go for the person who works. You can go to people who are in that area, or you can go certainly to the person who might be able to hire you. That's usually my recommendation.
And then I know that you touched on this, putting this in your summary, but someone asked if it's recommended or not to list your degrees and/or certifications after your name on LinkedIn.
Yes, you can. There was a time when LinkedIn didn't like that. They wanted you to keep it to the education section, but people started I think people just keep doing it. I don't have a problem with it. I don't have a problem with it at all. So if you want to, in the name field, if you already have your MBA, just as an example, you can put MBA after your name. By all means. LinkedIn hasn't told us we can't. So by all means, you can do it. Then obviously it really pops off when they see your name. So I would say go for it. Just don't, obviously, if you're one of those people that has 4 degrees and 6 certifications, it's not sheer volume that's going to impress me. So if it is a matter of choosing which ones, pick the relevant ones, the ones that are more designed to make an impression, and that's probably, I'd keep it to that.
With that, Ross, we're going to conclude the presentation. Thank you so much. All of your webinars are incredibly popular and current. I know that there's always lots of questions, but maybe I can get those to you later.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah, great. Okay, well, I'll be providing a recording in the next few days. I'll be putting it on the Namba YouTube channel, and this will conclude the program. So you guys have a great night.
Thanks so much, everyone. Thanks, Nadia. Bye-bye.
Bye.